So we now have this app completed, and it is pretty functional. Like, it could display all sorts of images. So if you're a photographer, this is a very simple way to show all of those images. If you were a videographer and you had a bunch of YouTube videos, this is another way to show all those videos. Again, it's not like it's the most amazing application ever, but for the amount of work that we had to do to get here, it's very minimal. And if you think about it, if you did this series once or twice or a few more times, by the end of it, you will be able to do this in your sleep. Like you'll be able to just do this very easily and very quickly, and probably in less than an hour. And then your friends that are into photography or video, you can just do this for them and release it onto a real life site. So that's the key part here, and that's what we're learning now, is releasing this onto a real live site. Now you might be wondering, why didn't we do anything with this drop down button? Well, that's because I just wanted to leave it in there so you guys can see that it is actually working still. So the drop down portion is actually working, but in our actual live app, I want to get rid of that. So my app component.html, I'm just going to go ahead and go to that drop down menu, which is at LI, and I'm going to go ahead and comment it out. So I saved that, and there we go. Now we're back into being the actual app that we're going to deploy. So where are we deploying it? We're using something called Heroku, Heroku.com. It's a great service. We use it all the time. They don't pay us to say this, although we would like it. They don't do it. It's really just a great service. That's why I recommend it a lot, especially for something like this. They make deploying very, very easy. They make sending it to their system very, very easy. So what you're going to want to have is the Heroku CLI, or the Heroku command line interface, already installed. It's formerly known as the Heroku tool belt. So if you've watched any of our other videos with the Heroku tool belt, good chance that you already have this installed. And I'll let you go ahead and pause the video now, go through that installation, and it'll actually install Git for us. I'll explain Git in just a moment, but that's the main thing. You want to set up an account with Heroku and download their command line interface for us to actually work with Heroku. But we'll get up to a point where it's ready to be deployed on any service that works with Node.js, as well as, well, pretty much just Node.js as well as Git. Then you'll be able to make the decision as to whether you want to use Heroku or anything else. I still would install the Heroku tool belt if I were you, because it does install Git for us, so it installs some other things that are just really nice and easy to use. Okay, so our app is ready to ship. Like, we're ready to send it out. Now we just use a new command, and that is ngBuild. And then we just do --prod. When I press enter here, what it does is it's turning all of my code, all of my TypeScript code, into JavaScript code. So it's kind of, compiling all this stuff down, and it's doing it in a way that is most efficient. So, or at least most efficient as far as Angular is concerned. I mean, there might be other things that are more efficient, and also if your code's not that efficient, maybe it's not the most efficient. But the point is it compiles it down into a minified file, so you can actually look at every single one of these files, and there's minified files even for your styles sheets, right? So they're all minified. Okay, so that's really cool. That's good for production because it increases the speed, or the likelihood of speed. Now, these files themselves, so all the JS and CSS files, all of these could be added to a CDN, or content delivery network. So that is something that you might consider getting at some point, and that is a CDN, content delivery network. Amazon has one. There's a few others, CloudFront. I mean, there's definitely a lot of them out there. So you could, in theory, put these things on, but actually Heroku is going to handle our static files fine. Again, using CDN is just about increasing speed for your users all around the world. Now, if you're familiar with our Django stuff, this is not obviously talking about Django. We're talking about doing Node.js and Angular stuff. So the way CSS and JS and images, how those things load, is different than what you may have heard with our Django stuff. So if you don't know, we actually do Django stuff, and it's on joincfe.com. Okay, so now that we have this stuff ready, we have this dist file, we have some actual things ready to be deployed, I'm going to do one more thing. I'm actually going to take it out of my development server and put it into a new location. So if I go back to ngBuild prod, I can actually do --output -path and then put it somewhere that I might want. So in my case, I'll do users, CFE, desktop, and then I'll just call it my test app. So we'll just call it ngServUpTest / I hit enter. And this is going to take it to a path. So you want to make sure that that path exists. Otherwise, errors might happen. Notice I didn't have to use quotes or anything like that. But this is really just outputting the build to somewhere else, right? That's it. So this is also very useful for when you start combining this with another backend system or a backend system in general. So if you combine this with Django, this is something that you would probably end up using there because you want the production version. And one other thing is you can add --watch so that it's building as you make changes. Okay, so I'm going to let it build for a moment. And as it does that, I'm going to open up the desktop into looking for this ngServUpTest. Notice it's back there. It was gone for a second, but it's back now that it's built. And I come in here. It has all of the same stuff that was in dist, the exact same stuff. But then if I make any changes to the code, to my TypeScript code or the source code, let's just go ahead and go into TypeScript module, and I'll just remove some spaces, hit save, Control S. It's building these apps again, or it's rebuilding it again, much like ngServ, but in this case, it's actually the production ready stuff. So with that there, I'm going to go ahead and open up a new terminal window. We're going to change into the desktop, and we're going to change into ngServUpTest. And this is where we're going to be working on our production file. So one of the things that we want to do in here too is I might want to actually have this in a different folder, right? So we're actually preparing this for production. So I'm going to go back in to the output directory, and instead of it being ngServUpTest, I'll also have a new folder in there called public. ngServUpTest already exists, so it's not going to delete what's in there. It's just going to add a new folder called public. And if I go back into this folder, once it's done compiling, all of these same files will be in that new folder called public. Now this has to do with our soon-to-be live server. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of everything else that's in here. Just drag it over right into the trash. And now if I look into public, that's where all of my stuff is. Okay, so now back in here, we list everything out. Now we only have a public directory. If I do pwd, we see where we are. Of course, if you're on Windows, it's dir. So one of the things that the Heroku service needs is something called a proc file. So we'll just do nano proc file. Or you can create it inside of here and just save it in that app. So if we go to the desktop, ngServTest, we're going to put the proc file in here. And it doesn't have an extension. It's just proc file, just like that. We have to actually run some stuff here, and that is web node index.js. We'll go ahead and save that. I am not in this client anymore, so I will go ahead and add this new folder to this project. And that is the ngServUpTest. We're going to go ahead and open that, and now we have it working. So we've got the proc file here. I will close out some of the other code. So I've got my proc file. That's a good start. The next thing is we see that it says node index.js. So when you deploy to Heroku, it will know right away that it's a Node server. So it's going to end up using Node because of the proc file, but also because we add a new file in here called package.json. Right? So package.json is a standard thing for NPM packages or Node package manager. So if you did NPM init ever, which you've probably seen before, it already creates the package.json for you. But I'm going to just copy and paste one that we've already got. So I'm going to call it triangular 4 or v4, which we've been calling it. You give it a version number. Notice main is index.js. We see some pattern here with index.js that does not exist. We've got our engine, so the node version, again, proc file node, and then some dependencies. These are things that you will want to have for this system. Now, you might see dependencies, additional ones somewhere, and we might actually have those on GitHub at some point. But for now, this is the portion that you want. Okay, so the next part, which maybe you're wondering, is we need to have that index.js. So again, in ngServUpTest, we will make index.js. And inside of index.js, I'm just going to copy and paste a few things because it's a little cumbersome. And this is just our basic Node.js backend system. So we're not going into Node.js. We're not building a whole app in Node.js. We're just doing something very, very basic that you can use to essentially render our Angular app. So that's what we'll talk about here. So first things first, it's creating this app for us, and then it's working off of sort of a standard port of 5000. It sets that port, and then it uses static. Now, static being our static files or just general static items. Now, what we've got here is saying dir name, so the directory it's in, /public. So we've got public here. That's that portion that is absolutely needed. The next part is how we actually handle all of our URLs. So yes, there are URL routing inside of Node.js, but we don't need to do routing because we've done it through Angular. So what this is basically saying is, hey, any URL, we're going to be using this function or what's going on below here. So any URL. Now, again, if you were to use Node.js and you wanted different URLs or different Angular versions, you could change it here or experiment with that. If you want to know more about Node.js, please let us know in the comments because it's something that we're considering adding, but we need to hear from you guys before we actually do. Also, let us know at joincfe.com/suggest. That's another great place to add it. Okay, so the next part is we actually are setting up a response for some content type of text.html. So basically rendering our HTML page, or we're sending it back. And of course, that HTML page is index.html, which was all generated from Angular, right? So right there, index.html. So that's actually going to run it. And then the next thing, it just sort of console logs that it's running this there. So that's it. That's all we actually need to set up to get Angular ready to work on there. So if I go back into that app and I just do node index.js, I get an error, cannot find module express. Well, why did that happen? Well, if I do npm install, what it does is it's going to install everything in this package.json, including all of the things that are required in that. So this dependency thing, it will actually install all of those. So that's something that you often may have to do. So now if I did node index.js, it runs, the Node app is running at localhost. So I go ahead and copy this, open up localhost. What do you know? It's now a different version of our other one, right? So our other one is likely working too. So if I refresh, no, it's actually not because we're not serving it. We're just building it. Okay, so it's not served, but if we did serve it, it would be there. But anyway, well, let's go ahead and do that. ngServe. We don't need the production to be watched anymore. It's already built. So now it's going to be served in 2 spots, just to illustrate that it is actually 2 separate things. It's actually working as 2 separate things. Here's localhost 4200, and then here's localhost 5000. Absolutely, absolutely different apps running. In fact, the other app, the one that we just created that's going to go into Heroku, is really a Node app. It's no longer considered an Angular app. Like, it doesn't register it as that. It registered it as a Node app, which is what you have to do to actually serve this on Heroku. I mean, there might be another way, but this is the best way that I found, or the easiest way that I found in doing this. So it's really just serving this index file that has some JavaScript in it, but Node.js has no idea that this is an Angular app, so you could use all sorts of other apps in here. So this method will work if you were using like React or AngularJS, not Angular 4, but AngularJS. You could use this same sort of method to release an app that way. Now, obviously this could all be replaced. All the Node stuff can be replaced with something like Django, something like Ruby on Rails, and then you just reference the JavaScript stuff in there too. Okay, so now that we've got all this stuff out and ready, let's go back into our ready-to-be production app, so the ngServUpTest, and we're going to go ahead and do git status. So we have a GitHub directory on here. There's already one inside of the ngServeUp test. That's actually not necessarily what I want. So I'll do ls pwd. I just want to make sure where I am. Do ls-all or ls-al. And this is showing me that, well, it doesn't actually look like there is a GitHub repository in here, right? It might be just making a little issue. So if I do git status again, it's still doing that. But if I do git init, now if I do git status, it's now showing me all this other stuff. So a few things that I still need to add is a git ignore. So we'll make a new file, .git ignore. Yes, .git ignore. Press enter. It's going to ask you if that's okay. We'll say yes. And I'm going to add in my node modules. I don't need to bring those in because we have package.json. I'm going to get the DS store. I don't need that either. And then now we'll do git status, and we should see a few things in here. That's good. We'll do git add --all, and that's going to add all of these things to be ready to be sent to Heroku. We'll do git commit message equals to initial commit. All right, so now we've got all that ready. Let's go ahead and create our first Heroku app. We'll do Heroku Create, and I'm going to call this triangular 4 or triangular 4. We'll hit enter. It's creating triangular 4. Obviously, you will not be able to call it triangular 4, at least the way I wrote it. So this is now triangular 4. This is the actual location as to where it's going to be. So I'll do git push Heroku master. I'll hit enter, and it's going to load some stuff. It's going to send it to Heroku. And I will do this one more time so you can see all of it done in real time. But as it's loading, I want to tell you something, and that is our triangular version 4 GitHub repository, which is right here. You can actually pull this data, so you can download it or clone it, and you can run npm install, which would get all the package stuff. And then you can do all of those same commands all over again, right? So everything that we've done the build. You can actually run this from our actual code. I actually recommend doing that if you run into any issues itself. So the things that we will put on this repository too is we'll have a nice little folder in here specifically for ngServeUp's test, so you can see that as well. It just doesn't exist there right now because we're working with Heroku. Okay, so now that we've got that, Heroku's done. Let's look at a few things here. If I scroll up a little bit, it says Node.js app detected. A couple reasons why, the proc file and the package. So it knows that, and then it creates a runtime, so it actually builds everything that needs to happen, and then it pushes it and it deploys it. Again, there's no database, so we don't need to worry about a database at all. I'm going to go ahead and copy the actual URL for it, press enter, and it's loading. What do you know? This is a real live service. It's really live. Like, you can actually check out triangular4 herokuapp.com. Boom, now it's working. And you can set up a custom domain. You can do all these things with it. So it's really, truly yours. And something that Heroku just announced is Heroku has free SSL or free site, secure sites on their thing. They just did it in a new blog post thing. It's somewhere out there, but essentially you can get free HTTPS on your custom domain, which is really cool. Okay, so another reason to use Heroku for that. If you have any questions on what we did here, let us know. Obviously, check the code and compare the code against what you have. There's definitely a lot of other things that we could have gone into when it refers to actually launching on Heroku, but I will summarize it really quickly again on how it is you can go about doing this. So almost from start to finish. Now, I'm going to go into my actual app, and I'm going to make a quick change here. And I'm going to change the app component from being called ServeUp. So instead of ServeUp, I'll call it Triangular version 4 because that's more accurate to what this is. So I save that. I'm going to do a quick build. So just build. I'm not going to watch it. I'll just hit build. This is going to build out the code for me. And if I look into the other portion, which was the ngServeUp test, notice public is gone. So if I went in there and did git status, I would see that it deleted all my stuff, and I did it right in time because it just came back. If I did git status again, it's all there, but it only shows me the things that have changed. Because things haven't changed that much, it shows me what has changed. I will also say that the index.html, this loading portion, all of this can be redesigned, just so you know. That is something else to note. Okay, so I do git status again, and I'll do git add -- all because I made some changes, so I'm going to add these changes to be committed, and then I'll commit them with a message saying second commit, or rather, instead of saying second commit, I'll say changed logo to triangular version 4, and then I'll do git push Heroku master enter. It's going to push all of these changes to Heroku. It shouldn't take as long this time around because that initial one, it actually installs all the things that you need. So in this case, it didn't need to install them because it's using cached stuff. Unless you made changes to your package or you added some stuff, whatever that is, that's possible. And then I can just do Heroku open. That opens up my app. It might take a second to load because of the free version of Heroku isn't always that fast, but check it out. Triangular version 4 is there and it's working correctly. Obviously, it's taking a little bit of time loading this image. It's kind of a big image, so you would probably want to compress your images. But all the other images are loaded fine. I go to videos. Again, it's going to take a moment to download and load some of these images because I did not compress them at all. And I'm also not using a content delivery network for my static stuff. Anyway, so now we've got this video here. It's definitely working, at least to a point that is useful for a live production server. So hopefully that covers everything. If we missed anything, please let us know in the comments below. And also please consider subscribing to us on YouTube. That is joincfe.com/YouTube. That will bring us right to your YouTube channel and you can subscribe there. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.